Brother conspired with my ex to steal my startup. You'll never recover. I got a new business partner, his fiancée. Now he's watching us grow rich together. 5 years ago, I started a tech company in Austin, Texas. It wasn't anything huge, just a small business that I hoped would grow. I was solving a problem I saw every day in my IT job. Small businesses were being left out when it came to cybersecurity. The big companies had solutions, sure, but if you were running a small restaurant or a local shop, you were on your own. That's where my idea came in. I created software that was cheap, simple, and built for people who didn't know anything about technology. I called it Safe Hive. Starting this company wasn't easy. I didn't have investors or savings to fall back on. I worked long hours, lived off instant noodles, and hustled like crazy. My apartment was a disaster most of the time, but I didn't care. I believed in what I was doing. Back then, Tressa, my girlfriend of 3 years, was my biggest supporter, or at least I thought she was. She was the one person I could vent to when things got hard. She'd tell me how proud she was of me and how she couldn't wait to see me succeed. I thought I had someone in my corner. Then there was Corbin, my older brother. Corbin was the successful one in the family. He worked in real estate, drove flashy cars, and loved to remind everyone how much money he made. Corbin and I had never been close. He looked down on me and made it obvious. Anytime I mentioned Safe Hive, he'd make some snide comment like, "Tech startups are for dreamers," or, "Sounds like a fancy way to say you're broke." I ignored him because I figured he was just being Corbin. He'd always been arrogant, but I didn't think he was capable of what came next. Fast forward 2 years. Safe Hive was finally picking up steam. We had a steady stream of clients and enough revenue to keep the lights on and then some. I was even starting to think about hiring a team. For the first time in years, I felt like things were looking up. That's when I noticed Tressa starting to pull away. At first, it was small things. She'd come home late and say she was working late. She spent more time on her phone, and when I'd ask her about it, she'd say it was just work stuff. I believed her because why wouldn't I? She'd been by my side through everything, and I trusted her. But something felt off. She wasn't the same supportive, loving person I'd known for years. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was stressed or going through something she didn't want to talk about. At the same time, Corbin's attitude towards Safe Hive shifted. He went from making fun of me to suddenly acting like he cared. He'd call me out of the blue and ask about my clients, my software, and my plans for the future. I thought he was finally taking an interest in my life, but looking back, I should have seen the red flags. His questions were always just a little too specific, like he was fishing for information. But I was naive. I thought he was my brother, and brothers don't stab you in the back. I was wrong. The day everything came crashing down is burned into my memory. I came home from work to find Tressa packing her bags. She didn't try to sugarcoat it. "I'm leaving," she said. That was it. No explanation, no apology. I begged her to tell me what was going on, but she just kept saying, "It's not working." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. She was gone that night, and I was left alone, trying to figure out what had just happened. 3 weeks later, I got my answer. A friend sent me a link to a new tech startup called Hive Shield. The moment I saw the website, my stomach dropped. It was a carbon copy of Safe Hive. Same concept, same branding, even the same phrasing I'd spent months perfecting. But what made me sick was the About Us page. There, smiling like smug idiots, were Corbin and Tressa, listed as the co-founders. I thought I was going to throw up. It all made sense, the late nights, the questions, the distance. They'd been planning this behind my back for who knows how long. I called Corbin, demanding an explanation. He didn't even try to deny it. He laughed and said, "It's just business, Rylan. Grow up. You'll never recover from this." Those words stuck with me, "You'll never recover." From that moment, my life went into a downward spiral. Corbin and Tressa used the information they'd stolen to poach my clients. One by one, they all left Safe Hive, confused by the nearly identical Hive Shield. I couldn't compete with Corbin's money or Tressa's connections. Within 6 months, I was forced to shut Safe Hive down. Everything I'd built, every sleepless night and sacrifice, it was all gone. I fell into a deep depression. I drained my savings just to keep the lights on in my apartment. I couldn't face my parents because I knew Corbin was feeding them lies about how I couldn't handle the competition. Meanwhile, Corbin and Tressa were living it up. They plastered their success all over social media, vacations, fancy dinners, and new cars. Every post felt like a slap in the face. I was angry, sure, but more than anything, I was ashamed. I felt like a failure. I don't know how long I stayed in that dark place, but eventually, something inside me snapped. I realized that Corbin and Tressa had already taken everything from me. I couldn't let them take my future too. If I was going to climb out of this hole, I had to do it on my own terms. I started researching ways to rebuild, but I didn't know where to start. That's when I got an unexpected message on LinkedIn. Her name was Serafina, and she introduced herself as a venture capitalist. She said she'd heard about my work with Safe Hive and wanted to meet. At first, I thought it was a scam. But after some digging, I found out she was the real deal. I decided to take a chance and meet her. When we met, she told me she'd been following my story. She knew about Corbin and Tressa, and she didn't mince words. What they did was disgusting, she said. But you've got something they don't, vision. Let's make this right. She offered to help me start over, but it wasn't just an offer. She believed in me. She wasn't like Corbin, who saw everything as a transaction. Serafina had integrity, and for the first time in months, I felt hope. We decided to start a new company together, and this time, I had a real partner by my side. With Serafina's help, we launched a new company called Hive Secure. The name was deliberate, a subtle dig at Corbin and Tressa's pathetic attempt to copy me. This time, I was smarter. Serafina had connections in the tech world that I never could have dreamed of, and she taught me how to avoid the mistakes I'd made with Safe Hive. I protected my intellectual property like my life depended on it, and I was careful about who I trusted. Hive Secure started small, just like Safe Hive had, but this time I had resources. Serafina helped me build a solid foundation, and within months, we were landing clients that I could have only dreamed of before. Businesses that Corbin and Tressa could never reach were signing with us. Why? Because we actually cared about what we were doing, and our product was leagues better than Hive Shield. Corbin didn't understand cybersecurity, he only understood money. And Tressa? She was all flash and no substance. Word started to spread in the industry. Hive Secure wasn't just another startup, it was the startup. We were featured in tech blogs, won a few industry awards, and even got a write-up in a local Austin business magazine. Meanwhile, Hive Shield was floundering. Their clients were complaining about buggy software and poor customer service. Corbin and Tressa had no idea how to actually run a tech company, and it showed. But I wasn't satisfied with just outperforming them. No, I wanted to make them feel what I'd felt when they betrayed me. The first step was taking back my clients. Corbin and Tressa had poached most of them by undercutting my prices, but now that Hive Secure was up and running, those clients started noticing the difference. I didn't even have to do much. Word of mouth spread, and one by one, they came back to me. I didn't badmouth Hive Shield, I didn't need to. Their shoddy work spoke for itself. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. One of Hive Shield's biggest clients, a regional chain of restaurants, reached out to Hive Secure. They'd had enough of Corbin and Tressa's incompetence and wanted to switch to us. This wasn't just any client, it was the account that had kept Hive Shield afloat. Without it, they were screwed. I didn't just take the account. I made sure everyone in the industry knew why the switch happened. It wasn't petty. It was business. But the real revenge came at an industry conference a year later. By this point, Hive Secure was dominating the market. We had expanded to 3 cities, hired a team of brilliant developers, and were on track to hit 8 figures in revenue. Serafina and I were practically inseparable, partners in business and in life. Corbin and Tressa were also at the conference, but they weren't there to network. They were there to survive. Their company was barely hanging on, and they were desperate to find investors. I knew this because one of their former employees, who now worked for Hive Secure, told me how bad things had gotten. Corbin was drowning in debt, and Tressa was openly talking about jumping ship. When we ran into them at the conference, it was perfect. Corbin looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, and Tressa's usual smug expression was gone. They saw me and Serafina across the room, and for a moment, I thought they might pretend they didn't see us. But I wasn't about to let them off that easily. I walked up to them, holding Serafina's hand, and smiled. Corbin. Tressa. How's Hive Shield doing these days? Corbin forced a smile, but it was obvious he was fuming. We're doing just fine, Rylan. Thanks for asking. Oh, that's great to hear, I said, keeping my tone light. I heard about the restaurant chain switching over to us. No hard feelings, right? It's just business. The look on his face was priceless. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Tressa looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Serafina, ever the professional, just smiled and said, "Good luck with everything. Let us know if you need tips on how to actually run a tech company." We walked away before they could respond, but the satisfaction of that moment stayed with me for weeks. The final nail in the coffin came a few months later. Hive Shield officially went under. Corbin and Tressa had overextended themselves trying to compete with us, and their investors pulled out. I heard through the grapevine that Corbin had to sell his fancy car and was back to working as a real estate agent. Tressa? She skipped town. Apparently, she left Corbin high and dry, which honestly didn't surprise me. She was always in it for herself. Meanwhile, Hive Secure was thriving. We'd become one of the top cybersecurity providers for small businesses in the region, and we were expanding into new markets. Serafina and I got engaged, and we're planning a wedding next spring. The best part? We're buying my parents a new house with the money Corbin once bragged he'd used to take care of them. I didn't just recover, I came out on top. And now, every time Corbin hears my name, he has to live with the fact that he's the one who lost everything, not me. They said I'd never recover. They were wrong.